In the small town of Ladysmith, located in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, the morning began as usual for Mthoko Zulu, a veteran garbage truck driver with 20 years of experience. Every morning, he would drive his old truck to deliver tons of waste to the local landfill, which stretched out on the edge of the dusty savanna, where the acacia thickets began. On that day, in the middle of a hot February, the air was heavy with humidity, and the sun was beating down mercilessly. Mthoko parked his truck next to a pile of rubbish and got out to check that everything was in order before unloading. Suddenly, a strange sound came from afar, a low, drawn-out moan, as if someone were breathing heavily. Mthoko froze, listening. The sound was coming from behind a pile of plastic bottles and torn bags. He squinted, trying to make out the source, and noticed movement. At first, he thought it was a jackal or a stray dog rummaging for food, a common sight at the dump. But when the creature turned around, Mthoko froze. It was a lion. Its fur was matted and covered in dirt, its ribs were protruding, and it was holding a piece of plastic bag in its mouth. The lion's eyes, dull and sunken, met Mtoko's, and there was no threat or strength in them, only despair. Mthoko felt his heart sink. He took a step back, but realized that the lion was too weak to attack. The animal sank heavily to the ground next to a pile of rubbish, its breathing hoarse and labored. Without hesitation, Mthoko took out his old cell phone and dialed the number of the nearest ranger station, located in the Kulu Kulu Imfolozi Game Reserve, an hour's drive from Ladysmith. His voice trembled as he said, "There's a lion here, at the dump. He's eating garbage. I think he's dying." The dispatcher on the other end of the line, a woman named Namsha, calmly assured him that help was on the way. "Don't go near it," she added. "We'll be there in 4. Mthoko waited, standing in the blazing sun, watching the lion, which lay motionless, only occasionally twitching. For the first time in his years working at the dump, he felt helpless in the face of the animal's suffering. Exactly 40 minutes later, a dusty pickup truck with the reserve's emblem pulled up to the dump. 2 rangers in green uniforms got out, Sifo Ndlovu and Zane Mbatha. Mthoko quickly explained what had happened, pointing to the lion, which was still lying among the trash. Sifo, seeing the emaciated animal, could barely contain his emotions. "It's a lion," he muttered, "but it looks like a shadow." Zane crouched down next to it, checking its breathing, and said quietly, "It's still alive, but time is running out." The rangers acted quickly. Sefo took a tranquilizer gun from the car, while Zane prepared soft ropes and a sturdy net for carrying the animal. Mthoko stood aside, nervously clenching his hands, hoping that the lion would survive. Sefo took aim and fired a dart into the lion's thigh. The animal twitched weakly, let out a quiet moan, and fell silent, plunged into a deep sleep. Zane carefully covered the lion with a light blanket to protect its paws, and then, together with Sifo and Mthoko, they carried the heavy but emaciated body to Mtoko's cart, and then into the back of the pickup truck. The car sped toward the veterinary station at the Kulu Kulu Imfolozi Reserve. Along the way, Zane monitored the lion's condition, checking his pulse and temperature. Sefo contacted the veterinarian, Dr. Annika van der Merwe, to prepare everything necessary for an emergency admission. Mthoko remained at the dump, watching the pickup truck drive away, his heart full of hope, but his head swarming with questions. How did the lion end up in such a place? Will he survive? A team of doctors was already waiting at the veterinary station. The lion, who would later be named Nanguni, in honor of the local Zulu people, meaning unity, was laid on the operating table. Annika, the chief veterinarian, immediately gave instructions to administer drugs to stabilize his heart rhythm. A young doctor named Tandi examined him and noticed that the lion's stomach was unnaturally swollen. An ultrasound confirmed the worst fears. Pieces of plastic and other inedible objects were stuck in his intestines. Surgery was performed without delay, during which about 700 grams of debris, including scraps of plastic bags and a piece of wire, were removed. Sefo and Zane waited outside the operating room, their faces tense. After 3 hours of intense work, Annika emerged with good news. He survived the operation. It's a miracle. considering his condition. The lion was placed in an isolated cage with dry straw, a bowl of water and soft meat. He was given antibiotics and nutritional solutions to support his body. Saifo sent the first photos of Anguni to the reserve's data center, and Zain called Motoko to report that the lion was out of danger. The next day, Tandy treated the abrasions on Manguni's body and administered vitamins. The lion was weak, but he opened his eyes for the first time and turned his head slightly, responding to the doctor's footsteps. On the second day, he was able to drink a little water, and on the third day, he began to chew pieces of soft meat that Tandy carefully placed in front of his muzzle. Saifo, entering the quarantine area, quietly called Anguni by name, and the lion seemed to recognize his voice, slightly raising his head. A week later, Anguni began to stand on his paws. His fur, albeit slowly, began to recover, and his weight increased by a couple of kilograms. Doctors and rangers kept a detailed log of his recovery, noting every small bit of progress. Motoko arrived on the 10th day to see Anguni. Standing by the cage, he smiled as he watched the lion begin to come back to life. Tandy remarked, "He's regaining his instincts. That's a good sign." After 30 days, Anguni underwent a full medical examination. The results surprised everyone. His heart, lungs, and muscles showed significant improvement. It was decided to transfer the lion to a semi-wild enclosure covering 5 hectares, surrounded by savanna and sparse trees. When the cage opened, Anguni slowly walked out, looking around. For the first time in a long time, he stepped on the grass, and a light breeze ruffled his growing mane. He let out a low roar as if welcoming his new life. The Yalului Infolozi Game Reserve began organizing tours to tell the story of Anguni. Tourists, watching the lion through safe glass, listened to the guide's stories about his rescue. Children who came for educational programs called Anguni the warrior lion. His story went viral in local communities, inspiring people to fight against pollution. Motoko, although he retired shortly after that, returned to the reserve 3 months later. He stood next to Saifo and Zain at a ceremony dedicated to Anguni, where a plaque with his story was unveiled. The lion, now healthy and strong, lay under an acacia tree, looking at the people who had given him a second chance. His eyes, once full of despair, now shone with strength. Anguni's story spread far beyond Ladysmith. It became a symbol of hope and a reminder of how human kindness and care can change the fate of even the weakest creature. Anguni, now a majestic lion, continued to live in a semi-wild enclosure, reminding everyone that even in the darkest places, light can be found. Friends, thank you for taking the time to read this story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel to support us. See you in the next stories about wildlife.